It sure wasn't the prettiest performance, but the Chicago Blackhawks still managed to snap their 8-game losing skid on Saturday with a 3-2 win over the Senators. And on today's episode, I'll be discussing the usual suspects like Connor Bedard and Peter Mrazek leading the way to victory, plus my thoughts on Lukas Reichel being reassigned to Rockford, and I'll also get into a quick preview of tonight's matchup with the Carolina Hurricanes. All that and plenty more right here on Locked On Blackhawks.
You're Locked On Blackhawks, your daily podcast on the Chicago Blackhawks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everyone? Welcome on into another episode of Locked On Blackhawks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, thank you all for making the show your very first listen here to start off your day. And a quick reminder to please go and smash that like button, comment down below, and subscribe for Celebrini. If you're a regular YouTube listener or watching today's episode for the first time, please go and show some support. And if you're a regular audio listener of the podcast, please make sure to consistently be downloading those episodes, go and rate and review the show as well. That also helps me out tremendously. And I also got to let you know today's episode is brought to you by the Sleeper app, the go-to platform for daily fantasy sports. And right now, if you go and download the Sleeper app, use the promo code LOCKEDONNHL in all caps to get up to an $100 match on your first deposit with Sleeper. All right, good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, depending on when you're listening to this. Thank you again for joining me on another episode of Locked On Blackhawks, your one-stop shop for all things Chicago Blackhawks. Hope everyone out there had themselves a lovely weekend. And for the first time since January 19th, nearly 1 month ago, the Chicago Blackhawks finally got back in the W column to snap their 8-game losing streak with a 3-2 win over the Ottawa Senators. Believe it or not, it was their 11th consecutive victory against the Sens. Wish we saw them a little bit more on the schedule as the Hawks came out on top by a final score of 3-2. And man, does it feel good to get back in that W column. Feels like forever since the last time the Blackhawks won a game, which was against the New York Islanders at home prior to the NHL All-Star break when the Hawks won that game 4-3 in overtime. I'm sure the guys in the locker room were thrilled to get that win, saying the same thing that I am right here, right now, how good it feels to get back in that W column, although it certainly wasn't the prettiest performance out of the Chicago Blackhawks, that's for sure. But thankfully, the few game changers that they actually have on their roster sure came to play, and none were better than Connor Bedard and Peter Mrazek, the two biggest bright spots on the Blackhawks this season. And as I said on X during this game, I genuinely think this Blackhawks team would be the worst team in NHL history without Connor Bedard and Peter Mrazek, because even with those two, they're still pretty darn bad, as we saw on Saturday, because the Ottawa Senators, for those who haven't been keeping up with them all season long, not very good either, finding themselves at the bottom of the standings in 28th place, the fifth worst record in the NHL. They've, been going through their rebuild for a long, long time up there in Ottawa, but they kind of took it to the Blackhawks in the final 40, 45 minutes of this game. Really, the rest of the way after the Blackhawks grabbed that 1-0 lead early, as the usual suspects, like I mentioned during the intro, kind of carried the way all day long for the Blackhawks in this matinee contest. They kicked off the scoring with a goal from Nick Foligno, a beautiful tic-tac goal passing play from that top line. Bedard down low to Kurashev. Kurashev cross crease over to Foligno for his 12th tally of the season. Both Kurashev and Foligno extended their point streaks to 5 games on that goal, while Connor Bedard picked up his second apple since returning to the Blackhawks lineup. But after that, not a real good defensive performance from the Blackhawks. The Senators responded back late in the first period to tie the game on a 2-on-1 odd man rush. Jacob Megna caught up the ice a little bit there, and then Kevin Korchinski Looked like a 19-year-old, again, back on defense as the lone defender there for that odd man rush. Didn't really do a whole heck of a lot of anything to prevent Tim Stützle from getting that easy backdoor tap in. That tied the game 1-1 after 40 minutes. And then in the second, the Sens really started to take over and get some momentum. They outshot the Blackhawks 22-6 alone in the second period. They also managed to grab a 2-1 advantage on the power play. Again, another goal that just came way too easy for the Senators, something that's kind of been a culprit for the Blackhawks all year long. Tim Stützle dashes through the neutral zone, enters the offensive zone with some speed, kind of leaves Colin Blackwell in the dust there, and then not really a great effort or great play recognition from Blackwell. He didn't end up covering Jakob Chychrun on the right side for that easy one-timer. That put Ottawa ahead 2-1, but fortunately, the game changers came to play for the Blackhawks, and who else but number 98, Connor Bedard, sneaking a shot through on a quick wrister, man. I had really missed watching him release the puck off of his blade in the blink of an eye, sneaks a shot through the Senators goaltender for his first goal since returning from injury, his 16th tally of the season. That had the game tied 2-2 after 40 minutes, despite the Blackhawks' lackluster middle frame. And all I could think about after Bedard scored that goal was the clip of that Canadian guy from the World Junior saying, Connor Bedard is a bad, bad boy. But the third period, what was kind of more of the same like the second, the Senators were the better team, I thought, in the majority of that final frame. They outshot the Blackhawks 13-8, had an advantage in puck possession, but after Connor Bedard again displayed why he's a bad, bad boy, unfortunately, the goal got overturned. Just a bananas maneuver by Connor Bedard to leave Artem Zub in the dust there. To be fair, as Ben Pope of the Chicago Sun-Times pointed out, Zub might have recognized that play was offsides, ended up getting overturned after an official's review, but Jason Dickinson, baby, the certified goal scorer, comes through in the clutch with his 17th goal of the season to regain the Blackhawks team lead in goals. Maybe he was a little bit upset that Connor Bedard had tied him so quickly, but Dickinson regains that lead. The certified goal scorer, baby, coming up in the clutch, and the Blackhawks find a way to steal this one 3-2. It wasn't the prettiest of performances, but one that they desperately needed to get that 3-2 result over the Ottawa Senators. And like I said, it was the usual suspects leading the way. Offensively, Connor Bedard was the real game changer. 2-point game for him, 2-point game for Philipp Kurashev as well. He had a beautiful backhanded assist to set up Connor Bedard for his goal. Nick Foligno continues to make the most of the opportunities on the top line. Jason Dickinson can't stop scoring goals, baby. I'm so excited to see what number he's going to put up once the season comes to an end. And I also haven't talked about this man at all here on this episode, but he was really the true number one star, if you will, for the Blackhawks. It was Peter Mrazek, man. Phenomenal in that third period to keep the Sens off the board. Faced a mirage of shots in the second. Out of the 22 that he faced, only let one get to the back of the net, holding the opponent to under 3 goals once again, man. I don't think anyone deserved this win more than Peter Mrazek, considering how well he has consistently played since the Blackhawks' last victory way back on January 19th. I mean, that 1 week before the All-Star break, he was the goalie of the week, but the Blackhawks gave him 0 goals of support in his 3 starts. 40 of the 42 shots that he stopped on Saturday, a lot of them were some pretty high-quality saves, so very, very much deserving of a win. Peter Mrazek, glad that the Blackhawks were able to give it to him because he's been holding steady all year long despite all of the injuries, all the battles that the Blackhawks have faced. The one consistent part of their lineup, you know, Connor Bedard even had to miss some time. Peter Mrazek has been there night in and night out. Very happy that the Blackhawks were able to reward him for all of his efforts all season with a hard-earned victory on Saturday over the Senators, and also doesn't hurt that they finally put a halt to that long-lasting losing skid. All right, that takes care of my recap of Saturday's win against the Sens. The big dogs leading the way for the Blackhawks. Coming up in just a moment here, I will get into Lukas Reichel being assigned to the Rockford IceHogs after being healthy scratched for the second consecutive game. But first, I got to talk to you all about Sleeper. A new NHL season brings all sorts of possibilities. Connor Bedard still could be on his way to winning the Calder Trophy. Austin Matthews, I don't know if anyone's been paying attention to what he's been doing up in Toronto, now has 48 goals through 52 games this season on a 75 goal pace. He could be potting 70 this year. And the Vancouver Canucks, how about them? Could be winning the President's Trophy, and you could be winning alongside them by playing daily fantasy hockey with Sleeper, the official daily fantasy app of the Locked On NHL network. And Sleeper is our number one choice for daily fantasy sports, especially daily fantasy hockey, because with Sleeper, you have the chance to win 100 times your cash in daily fantasy contests. And all you have to do is simply select whether studs like Nathan McKinnon, Austin Matthews, Connor McDavid, or Connor Bedard will record more or less than their Sleeper projections for goals, assists, points, shots on goal, and more in any given game. And again, Sleeper offers you the chance to win 100 times your cash in daily fantasy contests. So start paying attention, make the correct picks, and you could be winning real big. And right now, you could also go and use the promo code LOCKEDONNHL in all caps to get up to an $100 match on your first deposit with Sleeper. Or if you're just wanting to throw in $25, $50, Sleeper will match you on that up to $100 as long as you use the promo code LOCKEDONNHL in all caps. So make sure to do that. Once again, that's promo code LOCKEDONNHL in all caps, and go and see Sleeper's terms of use right now for more details. Segment 2, it's been a topic of much discussion here over the last few weeks and probably over the last few months now at this point on what to do with Lukas Reichel, as he's essentially struggled all season long after looking really sharp towards the end of last season and also during training camp leading up to this year. But after being scratched in 2 consecutive games, wasn't the first time where Luke Richardson kind of sent that message to Reichel and he was watching games from up in the press box. The Blackhawks finally made their decision as they officially reassigned the 21-year-old forward back to the Rockford IceHogs of the AHL on Sunday morning. And in 50 games so far this season, Reichel had only tallied 3 goals and 7 assists for just 10 points, while also only having 4 points over his last 29 games. And even diving into some deeper statistics for Reichel, he had just 1 goal and 3 primary assists in 586 minutes and 13 seconds of ice time at 5-on-5 in 50 games this season. Looking at his analytical numbers from last year, in 23 games, he skated 304 minutes and 21 seconds at 5-on-5 and had 5 goals and 3 primary assists. So pretty night and day in terms of his offensive production this season. And yeah, just really unfortunate that it's come to this point, Blackhawks fans, that we've reached this point. But at the same time, you know, I definitely would rather have Lukas Reichel playing minutes down in Rockford rather than consistently watching games from the press box. But you got to wonder how this is going to affect his clearly already shaken confidence. And I really do hope that he had a good chat with the Blackhawks front office, general manager Kyle Davidson, about how important he still is to this franchise and in this rebuild moving forward. Even though he has struggled mightily this season, he's still only 21 years of age. And we've seen it, you know, not in a huge sample size, but man, it really just feels like night and day from what we saw Lukas Reichel do at the end of last year when he was getting that opportunity in the top 6 with Andreas Athanasiou and Philipp Kurashev to what he did all year long. I mean, we saw some bursts and we saw some snippets, but it was never consistent. And I'm not even talking about like consistent from game to game. I'm talking about like period to period. Lukas Reichel would have one good period, but then he would be a ghost the next. And he was just never able to string anything together consistently. And yeah, I just really hope he's going down to Rockford with a purpose, kind of similar to what happened to him last year, but in a much different scenario, right? The Blackhawks elected to send Reichel back to Rockford despite him having a good run just before the IceHogs headed into the Calder Cup playoffs. Reichel ended up playing in the AHL postseason a little bit banged up. But yeah, obviously a similar situation, but now it's much, much different after we thought he was going to be a full-time NHLer entering the season, and kind of felt like Rockford was a thing of the past, that he wasn't going to go back there. So I'm sure this is really a tough recognition for him, and maybe a little bit embarrassing in a sense that he, didn't capitalize on his opportunity with the Blackhawks and is now back to a place where he never thought he was going to go once again. But I do really hope that he had a good chat with the Blackhawks organization to make sure his head's on straight and recognize that he is going to get a heck of an opportunity down there, a lot more offensive situations. He's going to get a lot of puck touches, and it's just a chance for him to kind of get a little bit of a fire in his belly, right? And to show everyone that he's too good for the AHL level and he doesn't need to be back down here, because the worst thing that could happen to Lukas Reichel is he goes down there down on himself and then he ends up playing worse in Rockford, and that's not going to help his confidence even farther. So I really do hope that he makes the most out of this. Really curious to see if he's going to be playing the center or the wing down in Rockford, though, because obviously he had jumbled through positions earlier on in the season with the Hawks before they kind of stuck him on the wing permanently, but mostly in the past down in Rockford, he has been used as a center iceman. I don't think the Blackhawks are going to want to use him as a center moving forward, just given kind of his struggles there and also looking at the center depth moving forward. I don't think that's exactly where Lukas Reichel fits in if he is still part of the plans. So yeah, really curious to see what position he's going to end up playing. But yeah, even though it is disheartening for him to go back down there, he still has to go and make the most of that opportunity and at least leave some encouraging signs to himself and to the Blackhawks organization moving forward. And if he does capitalize on this chance and go down there with a purpose and do what he's done in the AHL in the past, I do think there's an opportunity for him to get back up with the Blackhawks before the end of the season. But as far as whether I think this is the correct decision, that's kind of what people have been throwing out there on social media, it's kind of tough to say. The one thing I have mentioned on the show, and I will mention here again, I've seen some people, mostly on the Blackhawks beat, say that Luke Richardson and the coaching staff tried everything to get Reichel going. I kind of disagree with that in a little bit. And say what you want about sending him to Rockford. We'll see if that winds up being the correct decision. And I do think it's better for him to be there again than to be watching games in the press box. But I don't agree with the sentiment that they did everything that they could have to get Reichel going. And look, at the end of the day, it's still on Reichel. If he's in the doghouse, he's got to go and do something to get himself out of the doghouse. And it's still on him to go out there and produce, right? And he didn't do that, not consistently at all. And, at the end of the day, he has to do himself some favors. But when kind of looking at who Lukas Reichel has been playing with all season long and the players that he spent the most ice time with this season, the top four forwards that he spent ice time with this year at 5-on-5, number one was Mackenzie Entwistle, not an offensive-minded guy whatsoever. Number two, Taylor Radish, who is having a really down season in and alone of himself. Cole Gutman, who is down with Rockford right now and hasn't been a consistent offensive piece, went up in the NHL. And then number four was Tyler Johnson, who's been doing some good things in the goal-scoring categories, but only has 5 assists for the Blackhawks this season, hasn't really offered all that much in the playmaking category. So it's like, do we really expect Lukas Reichel to be, making the most out of these opportunities when he's getting looks with those guys? Like, those aren't the type of players I ever really imagined Lukas Reichel faring well with. And if you had told me at the beginning of the season, if those were the guys that Lukas Reichel was going to be playing with, I would have been down a little bit more on his numbers. And I just felt like they really didn't give him much of an opportunity over the last 3 months, basically, really since the start of November, to play with offensive-minded guys. Connor Bedard was fifth in terms of forwards that Reichel had played the most with this season, but it felt like, again, all of that was well earlier on in the year, and he didn't get a lot of time with Philipp Kurashev, who he looked really good with towards the end of last season. Didn't get much ice time with Nick Foligno. Didn't get much ice time with Colin Blackwell when he was rolling well, or Jason Dickinson, who's been, outside of Bedard, the best goal scorer for the Blackhawks this season. So I don't necessarily agree that they could have done everything with Lukas Reichel, because I would have liked to see him just get kind of an opportunity like Taylor Radish got all year long until the last week or two, right? Like, Taylor Radish has been bad, but he's been a top 6 guy for most of the season despite his struggles. I just wish Lukas Reichel would have kind of been treated the same there. But at the end of the day, like I said, it's on Reichel to go out there and produce and get himself out of the doghouse, and he didn't do himself any favors in this matter. So Is sending him to Rockford the correct decision? It's hard to say. Only time will tell. I wish they would have given him a little bit more of a chance, right? And played him with some more offensive-minded players at 5-on-5. And he really didn't even get much of an opportunity on the power play. And when he did, it felt like it was, again, earlier on in the season or when Connor Bedard was out of the lineup and the Blackhawks power play wasn't really doing much of anything. So we'll see. It really depends on what Lukas Reichel does with this stint down in Rockford. Like if he goes down there with a purpose, with a fire in his belly, like I said, and goes and tears it up like he's done in the past, and maybe it gets his confidence going and maybe he just kind of feels differently and gets in a different mindset when he does enter the NHL and just has a little bit of a good feeling about where his game is at, because it's probably been a long time since he's felt that. And it's been tough to watch him play throughout all of these struggles and how it's been handled. And I'm sure it has not been easy for him after the expectations were so high going into this season. Hopefully we'll be seeing Lukas Reichel sooner rather than later if he makes the most of this opportunity. But yeah, kind of felt like the Blackhawks coaching staff had hit a wall if they weren't going to give him those top 6 opportunities, like I said, and seemed like they've been reluctant to do so. I think the next best thing for them to do was to send him to Rockford rather than having him play with Mackenzie Entwistle and Ryan Donato or Taylor Radish. That hasn't really been working very well for him as of late. All right, there are my thoughts on Lukas Reichel being reassigned to the Rockford IceHogs, an unfortunate circumstance. Coming up in just a minute, Blackhawks fans, for those who want to stay tuned in, I'll be getting into a quick preview of tonight's matchup with the Carolina Hurricanes. But first, I need to talk to you all about FanDuel. Go and get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can get $150 worth of bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. That's right, $150 worth of bonus bets simply if your $5 bet wins. And you can use these bonus bets to bet on anything from your favorite players to favorite teams, quick bets, live same-game parlays, exclusive props, and much more, all on an app that's safe, secure, and super easy to use. The NBA is taking over now that football season has wrapped up, so go and place a wager down on LeBron James, Luka Doncic, Joel Embiid, and some of the other top players in the NBA. And if you sign up today and visit FanDuel.com/lockedon, you can start earning bonus bets with America's #1 sportsbook. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, an official partner of the NBA. Back here on the Locked On Blackhawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Again, thank you to everyone who's still tuned into this point of today's episode. And if you haven't done so already, please go and help me out by hitting that like button, commenting down below, and subscribing for Celebrini if you're a regular audio listener and tuning in to today's episode. That way, make sure to be consistently downloading all of those episodes. Go and rate and review the show as well, preferably with a 5-star review. Those always put a good smile on my face. And also, make sure to go and check out the new Locked On Sports Today, because Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. And Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every single league. So make sure to go and check out Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. Segment 3, back here are the Blackhawks. Back in action, I should say. I was thinking I was getting into this segment. Back in action are our Chicago Blackhawks here tonight, taking on the Carolina Hurricanes out in Raleigh for their, believe it or not, lone road game here in the month of February, as they're going to be spending a lot of time in Chicago at the United Center. And tonight is going to be a much tougher test than Saturday was against the Senators, as they have really struggled historically in the last 5 or 6 years against the Carolina Hurricanes. And the Canes right now, they're second in the Metropolitan Division, trying to chase down the New York Rangers for that #1 spot. They're currently 6 points back and have won 7 of their last 10 games. So yeah, definitely not going to be an easy one for the Blackhawks tonight. They're going to have to be on their toes for a full 60 minutes just to hang in there with this really well-rounded Hurricane squad. But, you know, now that we got a healthy Connor Bedard in that, Philipp Kurashev and Nick Foligno playing some good hockey, Jason Dickinson being the certified goal scorer that he is, leading the way on the team in goals. And then, of course, Peter Mrazek, who we do expect to get the start here this evening, going back to Carolina, playing in a building where he was their starting goaltender for a handful of years. Maybe the Hawks have a chance at, besting the Carolina Hurricanes here this evening. I'm not going to say it's likely, though, as they still haven't won a road game since all the way back on November 11th, which is actually crazy at this point. The Blackhawks have not won a road game in over 3 months. I can't believe that's actually still ongoing, but maybe they'll have some good mojo going into this one. Getting into the lineup we could see for the Blackhawks here, though, they just wrapped up their morning skate out in Raleigh about 30 minutes ago. Top line for the forward group, not all that surprising that we expect it to stay the same with Nick Foligno, Connor Bedard, and Philipp Kurashev. That trio has been rolling real well since Connor Bedard got back into the lineup. But what's interesting is on the second line this morning was none other than Anthony Beauvillier, who we've known has been nearing his return from that wrist injury that he suffered back on January 2nd against the Nashville Predators, the first game of the 2024 calendar season for the Hawks. Suffered that wrist injury along the boards. We've seen him skating for the last couple of weeks, but just recently has been able to go and shoot out there while practicing. But it looks like Beauvillier could be making his return to the lineup for the Blackhawks here this evening. And since the Hawks acquired him from Vancouver, just a reminder what a good deal this was for the Blackhawks. They desperately needed help in their forward group at the time as well, and they managed to nab Beauvillier from the Vancouver Canucks in exchange for a conditional 2024 fifth-round pick. Feels like Kyle Davidson should be trying to do business with the Vancouver Canucks whenever possible, because the Blackhawks have made some really solid deals with them over the years. Jason Dickinson, getting him and a second round pick in exchange for Riley Stillman, who played like 30 games with the organization. They traded Madison Bowie to the Canucks a few years ago in exchange for a fourth round pick. That ended up turning into one of the top defenseman prospects in the organization right now, Ethan Del Mastro. So yeah, Kyle Davidson, anytime the Vancouver Canucks are calling, make sure to pick up that phone ASAP, Rocky, because he's the Blackhawks organization as a whole has just done some really solid deals with the Canucks. But yeah, Beauvillier in his 15 games since being acquired from Vancouver, 2 goals and 4 points, 4 assists for 6 points. Nothing that's going to jump off the page to you, but considering all the struggles this Blackhawks have had as an offensive bunch outside of that top line, it's nice to get an offensive-minded piece like Beauvillier back in the lineup. And looks like he's going to be replacing Tyler Johnson on that second line with Jason Dickinson and Joey Anderson, who I don't want to say I called him out prior to this game on Saturday, but I mentioned that I don't think his second line spot is as solidified as it was a few weeks ago when Blackwell, Dickinson, and Anderson were rolling really well as a second line. We've seen Blackwell since kind of be bumped down in the lineup. Joey Anderson felt like he had been quiet for a little bit there, but I thought he had one of his better games in the last couple of weeks against the Senators. Had some really good forechecks and got in there to make some nice plays to strip the puck off of Senators' puck carriers. So I thought he had a really strong game. He's staying on the second line for at least this one against the Canes. The third line, Boris Kachuk and Taylor Radish remain on the wings, but with Tyler Johnson being replaced by Beauvillier on the second line, he has now slotted into that 3C position, which I think just makes the Blackhawks forward depth look a little bit better, while Colin Blackwell, Mackenzie Entwistle, and Ryan Donato round things out with the forward group. I do want to say as well, Boris Kachuk, I thought had a really solid game against the Sens. Did some really good things on the penalty kill, and the Hawks PK has actually been a really solid part of this team since the start of 2024. I think Boris Kachuk has been a good, what's the word I'm looking for? Has been a guy who's influenced those solid results from the Blackhawks and continues to get scoring opportunities, even though the finishing has eluded him. So like to see him remain on that third line spot, while Colin Blackwell, Entwistle, and Donato are down on the fourth line. Entwistle slides down a spot as well into that 4C position, which I think is a little bit more natural for him. Third line center Mackenzie Entwistle wasn't really doing a whole lot of producing offensively, while Reese Johnson and Zach Sanford, who I've kind of been calling for to be used as an extra, a guy who really hasn't even been taking faceoffs for the Blackhawks, but consistently in that 4C spot, he's now been bumped out of the lineup into an extra. And then on defense, looks like it's going to be the same as what we saw on Saturday. Alex Vlasic and Seth Jones, they had a really nice bounce back game after kind of a rare 2 off nights in a row for them. Kevin Korchinski actually wound up getting benched in this game against the Ottawa Senators for the latter half of the second period after just making a couple of soft plays. Did end up getting back into the regular mix during the third period, but just something to note if he struggles again tonight. Wouldn't be surprised if Luke Richardson staples him to the bench for a little bit just to kind of send a message as well. And then Jacob Megna has kind of come back down to earth recently as well after a really strong start to his Blackhawks tenure. Hawks really need that second pairing to be solid here tonight because Jared Tenorti and Louis Crevier figure to be the third defensive pairing with the Hawks not really having any other options, as Isaac Phillips is still the seventh defenseman on the roster with Connor Murphy and Nikita Zaitsev banged up. I thought Tenorti and Crevier were meh against the Senators, not very good, but that's kind of how they've been the last couple of weeks. I don't think Luke Richardson is going to want to be sticking those guys out there against the top offensive pairings for the Hurricanes all that often. So Korchinski and Megna really need to be ready to go against a sound offensive bunch in the Carolina Hurricanes. And then, like I mentioned, Peter Mrazek making his return to Raleigh only makes sense for him to be in net for this one tonight. I was really glad he wound up being in there for that game on Saturday against the Sens because he ultimately was the difference maker. But I thought Saturday would have been an opportunity actually for Arvid Soderblom to make his second consecutive start. I know it didn't go great for him in the start prior as he had yet another loss, but actually played pretty good in the final 40 minutes, I thought, after a shaky opening 20. But with the Hawks playing the Hurricanes and then the Flyers on Wednesday, the Winnipeg Jets on Saturday, or the Winnipeg Jets on Friday, and then the Detroit Red Wings on Sunday, none of them kind of figure to be Arvid Soderblom games in mind. Maybe he goes on Wednesday against the Flyers just to give Mrazek a little bit of a break, but some tough opponents coming up on the schedule for the Blackhawks. Kind of surprised a little bit that Soderblom didn't get that start, but sure glad he didn't, like I said, because Mrazek needed to be in there for the Hawks to snap their losing skid, but just something to keep an eye on throughout the rest of the week. Will Peter Mrazek get 4 starts in a row? I wouldn't doubt it based on the way Luke Richardson's ridden him over the last couple of months, but still a lot of action and games where he's likely to face a lot of shots on goal coming up. So Peter Mrazek, as he's been all year long, figures to be tested throughout the course of this week. Hawks are going to need him to be solid in net as well tonight for any chance to not even top, to hang in there with this Carolina Hurricanes team. All right, I think that is going to wrap up today's episode of Locked On Blackhawks. As always, thank you all again for tuning into the show, and be sure to go and follow Locked On Blackhawks for free right now, wherever you may be listening to your podcast. Even if you're a regular YouTube viewer, make sure to go and do that as well. It really does help me out. And if you're not already subscribed to the YouTube channel, what are you doing? Go and subscribe for Celebrini. If you don't subscribe, that tells me you don't want Macklin Celebrini to be playing with Connor Bedard, and I don't know who wouldn't want that. So make sure to go and smash that subscribe button. Also, you can find my personal account on X at Jack Bushman 2. You can go and follow me there. And also make sure to go and follow my Strictly Blackhawks account at Talkin' Hockey. So that way you can get all the latest Blackhawks news and updates. So until the next episode of Locked On Blackhawks, everyone, enjoy the rest of your day. And that's going to do it here for today's episode. I'll see you next time.